Across the United States, there are stories that don't end, stories that simply stop. A respected judge who stepped away from everything he built and was never seen again. A powerful union leader who left a restaurant after dinner and vanished into thin air. A little girl taken from the place that should have been safest, her own home, leaving behind only questions that still echo decades later. And a flight that lifted into the sky, full of promise, only to disappear into open air as if the horizon swallowed it whole. These are not legends. They are not campfire tales. They are real names, real families, real searches that stretched for years and still came up empty. Because sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't what we find. It's what we don't. Death at least gives an ending, a grave, a date carved in stone. But disappearance leaves the door half open. A phone that might still ring. A hope that refuses to die. It keeps families suspended between past and present, between grief and denial. No closure. No certainty. Only waiting. Tonight, we step into some of America's most haunting disappearances. Cases that baffled investigators, divided the public, and left behind mysteries that refuse to fade. Stories filled with twists, strange details, and moments that make you question what you think you know. Because sometimes, someone doesn't just go missing. Sometimes they vanish without a trace. Let's begin with a man who simply stepped outside and was never seen again. Number 1, Ambrose Bierce. Long before he became a mystery, Ambrose Bierce was a man who understood death better than most. He had seen it up close. As a young man, he fought in the American Civil War. He witnessed brutal battles, walked through smoke-filled fields, and survived moments that claimed thousands of others. War hardened him. When the war ended, Bierce turned to writing. He became a journalist, a critic, and a short story author known for his biting wit and dark imagination. His words were sharp, cynical, sometimes cruel. He had little patience for hypocrisy and even less for foolishness. Readers admired him, some feared him, many called him brilliant. Death, irony, and the unpredictability of fate filled his stories. It is almost unsettling, then, that his own life would end in the same way his fiction often did, abruptly and without explanation. In 1913, at the age of 71, Bierce made a decision that surprised many. He traveled south to Mexico. At the time, the country was in the middle of the Mexican Revolution, a violent, chaotic conflict filled with shifting alliances and armed rebellion. Most men his age were settling into quiet retirement. Bierce, instead, went toward danger. In letters to friends, he sounded calm, even amused. In one of his final known messages, he hinted at the possibility of joining revolutionary forces. He wrote as if stepping into war once more was simply another chapter. Then in December of 1913, the letters stopped. No more updates. No farewell. No confirmed sighting. Just silence. What happened next has never been proven. Some believe he was executed by firing squad, caught in the turmoil of revolution. Others think he died in battle, an old soldier meeting his end among younger fighters. There are theories that he wandered into the desert and succumbed to illness or exhaustion, buried in an unmarked grave beneath endless sand. A few even suggest something stranger, that he chose to disappear, that he assumed a new identity somewhere far from the world he once criticized so fiercely. But there is no body, no official death certificate, no confirmed record of his final moments. Only speculation. And that is why his story endures. Ambrose Bierce, the man who wrote so often about sudden endings and cruel twists of fate, became one himself. A storyteller who vanished into his own unfinished tale. More than a century later, the final chapter of his life remains unwritten, suspended somewhere between history and legend. Number 2. Joseph Force Crater. In the summer of 1930, Joseph Force Crater was a man at the height of power. He was a New York Supreme Court justice, wealthy, well-dressed, politically connected. He moved comfortably through elite circles, attended high-profile events, and carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who believed his future was secure. To the public, he was a respected figure in the legal system. Behind the scenes, he was a man surrounded by influence and possibly secrets. On the evening of August 6, 1930, Crater had dinner at a restaurant in Manhattan. It was an ordinary night by all appearances. He laughed, spoke casually, and gave no sign that anything unusual was about to happen. After dinner, he stepped outside. He got into a taxi, and he was never seen again. The cab drove away into the New York night. Crater never arrived home. He never checked in with friends. He never appeared in court again. It was as if the city swallowed him whole. As investigators began digging into his life, troubling details surfaced. Shortly before his disappearance, Crater had withdrawn large sums of money, thousands of dollars in cash. He had also destroyed certain documents in his chambers, papers burned, files missing. Why? Some speculated he feared scandal. Others whispered about corruption, political favors, and connections to organized crime. New York in the 1930s was a city of power brokers and mob influence. Was Crater involved in something he couldn't escape? Or did he stage his own disappearance, slipping away with cash in hand to start a new life elsewhere? Despite widespread media attention and one of the largest investigations of its time, no body was ever found. No confirmed sighting ever held up. No death scene was discovered. Years passed. Eventually, he was officially declared dead, but it was a legal conclusion, not a factual one. The mystery became so famous that a new phrase entered American slang: to do a crater. It meant to vanish suddenly and completely, without explanation. Nearly a century later, Joseph Force Crater remains exactly what he became that August night. A man who stepped into a taxi and disappeared without a trace. Number 3. Jimmy Hoffa. Few names in American labor history carry as much weight, or as much mystery, as Jimmy Hoffa. Hoffa was not just a union leader, he was a force. As president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, one of the largest labor unions in the United States, he represented hundreds of thousands of workers, truck drivers, warehouse employees, men who moved the country's goods across highways and city streets. He was bold, charismatic, fiercely determined. But he was also controversial. For years, federal investigators suspected Hoffa of having ties to organized crime. Accusations of corruption followed him. Court battles became part of his public image. To supporters, he was a champion of the working class. To critics, he was dangerously connected to the underworld. By the summer of 1975, Hoffa was trying to regain power within the union he once controlled. On July 30, 1975, he was scheduled to meet two alleged mob figures at a restaurant in suburban Detroit. That afternoon, he called his wife. He told her he was waiting outside for the men he was supposed to meet. He sounded frustrated. The meeting hadn't started yet. It was the last confirmed contact anyone ever had with him. When the men he was supposed to meet denied seeing him, alarm bells rang. His car was found in the parking lot, but Hoffa himself was gone. No struggle. No public witnesses. No confirmed sighting after that call. Theories exploded almost immediately. Was he executed by the mafia for becoming too ambitious, too unpredictable? Was his body buried beneath layers of concrete, perhaps under a stadium foundation, hidden forever beneath cheering crowds? Was he cremated, leaving behind no physical evidence at all? Or, in a twist few fully believe, did he enter witness protection and begin a secret new life? For decades, the FBI chased leads. They followed tips. They dug up fields, backyards, and industrial sites. Each new rumor sparked another search. Each excavation raised hope and then delivered nothing. In 1982, Jimmy Hoffa was officially declared dead, but officially missing. Nearly half a century later, his disappearance remains one of the most famous unsolved cases in American history. Because Jimmy Hoffa wasn't just a man. He was power, influence, controversy. And one summer afternoon, that power simply vanished, leaving behind one of the greatest unanswered questions in the United States. Number 4. Amelia Earhart. In the early days of aviation, when flying was still dangerous and uncertain, one name rose above the clouds: Amelia Earhart. She was fearless. At a time when aviation was dominated by men, Earhart broke barriers with calm determination. In 1932, she became the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, turning herself into a global symbol of courage and possibility. She didn't just fly planes. She challenged expectations. By 1937, Amelia Earhart was preparing for her most ambitious journey yet, a flight around the world. It would cover nearly 29,000 miles, tracing a path close to the equator. The trip was risky, complicated, and dependent on precise navigation across vast stretches of open ocean. On July 2, 1937, Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan, took off from Lee, New Guinea. Their next destination was Howland Island, a tiny speck of land in the Pacific Ocean. It was one of the most difficult legs of the journey. Radio transmissions from Earhart indicated trouble. She reported low fuel. She said they were close, but couldn't see the island. Signals grew weaker. Confusion filled the airwaves. Then silence. Despite one of the largest search efforts ever conducted by the U.S. government at the time, no confirmed trace of Amelia Earhart or her aircraft was found. The ocean kept its secret. Theories soon followed. Many believe her plane simply ran out of fuel and crashed into the Pacific, sinking beyond recovery in deep waters. Others suggest she managed a rough landing on a remote island, surviving for a time before ultimately perishing, her remains lost to isolation. Some theories take a darker turn, claiming she was captured by foreign forces amid rising global tensions. And then there are the more unusual claims that she returned under a different identity, living out her life away from the spotlight. But no theory has ever been conclusively proven. No confirmed wreckage. No verified remains. Only fragments of radio signals and endless speculation. Amelia Earhart once wrote that adventure was worthwhile in itself. Yet her final adventure became one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century, a pioneering spirit disappearing into the wide, open sky, leaving the world searching the horizon for answers that have never arrived. No, disappearances haunt us because they leave a void, a space where answers should be, but never appear. Psychologists call this ambiguous loss. It's a type of grief without closure, a tension between hope and reality. Families are left waiting, friends are left wondering, and the mind, desperate for explanation, fills the silence with questions that have no answers. There's something uniquely unsettling about not knowing. Death, as tragic as it is, provides an ending, a grave, a date, a memory to hold onto, but disappearance leaves everything suspended, every possibility alive, every fear magnified. Sometimes not knowing is worse than knowing. The mind keeps replaying scenarios, the heart keeps searching, and the story, unfinished, becomes eternal. If you want more of these chilling tales and mysteries that refuse to fade, don't forget to subscribe to Dark History Retold, and join us as we step into the shadows of the past.